You are listening to the IU Report, a special double episode with Grant Shouse and Mike Hutsell. You can hear it every week on the Central Indiana Sports Report, and we'll be back on Wednesday night with a reaction to IU's Big Ten opener at Minnesota, only on the Central Indiana Sports Report. Welcome back, IU fans, to the Central Indiana Sports Report for our weekly IU report with Grant Shouse and Mike Hutsell. And this week, there's just not a lot to talk about, Grant.
It's probably going to be one of the more memorable weeks in IU athletic history. Of course, we all know about the Big Ten championship on Saturday, kind of the meaningless Big Ten championship on Saturday. Still want to win it, but we'll get into that more in the preview. And then the basketball opens their Big Ten play here on Wednesday against Minnesota on the road up at the Barn. Kind of a tough place to play. In years past, Indiana has historically, I don't want to say struggled up at the Barn, but they've played games there that they either should not have been in or should not have let Minnesota be in. And that's going to be a nice test for Darren DeVries and them to go on the road. I know Minnesota's not very good. Like, they are a bottom feeder Big Ten team, but any game in the league is important, Mike, and any game that you can win in the league is even better for your NCAA tournament hopes.
Not only that, any kind of get a road win in the Big Ten, you got to take those with a degree of difficulty of 1.5 at least. The Barn is a place where I remember seeing Indiana win a lot of games. So it's not like this house of horrors at like the Breslin Center or the Rack out at Rutgers, where you just don't see Indiana go win often. But at the same time, some of the worst memories I have as an IU fan have occurred in that building. We talk about the 50-point loss that happened well before Grant was born. The 2013 team that was number one in the country most of the season, they went up there and Tubby Smith got them. There was a Joe Prisbilla tip-in at the buzzer that just comes to mind when I think of games that I've hated in that building. Archie Miller had about a 29-point lead there with one of his teams, and Minnesota just started hitting shots that weren't even real. They were like 2 steps inside half court, and they cut it all the way down to like 5 or 4. It's one of those places where Indiana wins, but the losses have a tendency to be really, really memorable. So I really don't want to add another memory tomorrow. And this is not a team that Indiana should have difficulty beating. This is a team that went to overtime with Doug Gottlieb in Green Bay earlier this season. They don't have a huge non-conference resume, but road game in the Big Ten. It's the Barn. It's going to be freezing cold up there. You hate it. You got to protect this one because you got the big one coming up on Saturday.
Oddly enough, fun fact about me, I have been to the Barn. I've been to the University of Minnesota, and that place is really neat. It's a neat arena. It's one of the few courts in college basketball that is famously raised above the court, or above the floor, I should say. And it can be a tough place to play. This is going to be a test for Indiana to open up conference play. I think it's a good opponent, a favorable opponent to open up conference play. You don't want to just go right in and a new coach and open up with like Michigan or Michigan State to open up your conference play as a new coach in a new conference at Indiana with Darren DeVries. So this is a nice kind of way to ease your way into the league and get you ready for, of course, the Louisville game on Saturday.
Iowa learned tonight the hard way that you don't want to go to Michigan State with a new coach to open the season. They got ran by 19-20 points in their Big Ten opener. The whole season, to me, has been kind of a ramp up to December. The non-conference schedule has not gotten any help this week, unfortunately. Bowling Green goes to K-State and kind of runs them off the court last night. And at last check tonight, Marquette losing at home to Valparaiso. They don't have any even quad 2 wins. on the schedule so far, and the first net that came out on Monday, where Indiana came in at 11. The thing they've got going for them is metrically they're playing better than the spreads, and they're pleasing the computers from that standpoint. But their schedule's been really, really weak, and this is just kind of another step up the ramp because, as we know, you probably have undefeated Louisville on Saturday as the appetizer for the Big Ten title game in football on Saturday evening.
Right. And that Louisville game is going to be so important because, yeah, the Kansas State win was great. The Marquette win was great. But if you can beat a top 5 team in Louisville on a neutral floor where Indiana struggled in years past on neutral floors, that is going to be such a boost for your program. Now, Mike, I can tell you, I'm okay with that team, this Indiana basketball team, getting ran off the floor like they did against Auburn, like they did that time out there in Vegas against Arizona. I'm okay with that happening against Louisville if it means the football team wins at Lucas Oil on Saturday night. It's a nice appetizer for those fans. I know you're going to get to go to the basketball game. I'm assuming you're not going to the football game, right?
No, my 401k has told me not to.
Okay. I had to check with the financial advisor.
He won't pick up my calls this week. I think he knows why I'm trying to reach him.
So that's gonna be a nice experience for some fans. I know a couple of people who I think are gonna be doing the doubleheader. Downtown's gonna be rocking Saturday, and it's gonna be a sea of red, not just from the Indiana fans, but of course Ohio State and the few Louisville fans that'll make their way up to the basketball game. So I'm looking forward to Saturday. Ironically enough, guys, and I may get banned from the podcast from Mike, maybe not Greg, but I have a press pass for the 12 o'clock game for Purdue and Iowa State on Saturday afternoon. Unbelievable.
Good one. That's a big game. Iowa State's played really well at the beginning of the year, and
That's
we all
a
know
top
about
10
Purdue.
game.
If I wasn't going to be in Indianapolis, I'd be tuned in, but go Cyclones.
I know it's the IU report, but I'm looking forward to that one just because I'm going to be what they're calling hate watching up there at Purdue. So
absolutely, if you're doing anything but, I'd be taking over the podcast full time.
In regards to basketball, I think obviously you need to see more of the things that we kind of saw out of the Kansas State game from this Indiana team. Oddly enough, we have not mentioned their 100-56 win over Bethune-Cookman. That was a game that I have not really gotten a chance to watch yet, and I'm not sure you really need to. It's kind of like skipping an episode in your favorite TV show. You just kind of don't need to watch that episode. So,
well, there were some highlights for that one. If the biggest thing that came out of that game is, for the first time this season, we really got to look at Nick Dorn and what he can do offensively. A guy who shot almost 50% from three last year at Elon. He was a 47% three-point shooter. He knocked down 4 threes in that game. So it's the first time he's been trying to get his legs back under him. I watched him pretty closely at halftime of the K-State game, and the guy didn't hit the rim once. Shooting. Now, obviously, you're shooting wide open. You're shooting warm-up type shots, but I was like, get the ball to that guy in that spot. Let's just get him some confidence. He finally played with a little more confidence. We've talked about getting the third scorer option for Indiana. I still think he's the guy, and he's another guy who could be a lethal outside shooter. So that's the big takeaway from the Bethune-Cookman game. Just not a whole lot else out there to really talk about with that one. It was pretty lopsided from the word go.
obviously, that's a great win. That's a win that's not going to boost your resume. Bethune-Cookman is kind of the way they sound. You don't really know anything about them. They don't really bring anything. I'm not even really convinced this is a real place. This may be like a Bishop Sycamore type deal.
Grant, I know we talked a lot about basketball. We're going to talk a little bit more about football, but we have to throw one thing in. Let's give a shout out to Coach Aird and the volleyball team. Hosting a top 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. They'll be hosting on Thursday. that program's just come such a long way. They haven't made the tournament in 15 years. And in the Big Ten, it's tough to build in the Big Ten. That's the premier it's the SEC of college volleyball.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a program that you've seen has kind of been building here the last few years. Steve Aird with that program has done a phenomenal job. I've actually been to one of those volleyball games. They played Ohio State one time. They play in a nice gym there at Wilkinson Hall. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to go in there, Mike.
I have not, no.
It's a neat little gym. I think it'd be kind of cool to see Indiana basketball, maybe not the men, but like the women, do like a red and white scrimmage in there. If you could set that up, I think that'd be pretty cool. It's a nice little gym that they play in, and so it's good they're getting a host, and they have a variety of players that have come from Indiana. They've come through the Indiana pipeline, and you have another program in the state in Purdue, their volleyball program that's just been outstanding for years. And so for Indiana to start building that volleyball program up in the tough Big Ten conference, you're sharing a conference with Nebraska, of all people, who is a powerhouse in volleyball. A wagon.
They're a wagon.
An absolute wagon. So that is one of the good things, and that's a good sign of a good program. Things are up within the Indiana athletic department, man. I'm telling you, with the volleyball, with the football, of course, basketball's off to a great start. Women's basketball's only lost one game. They lost to Iowa State, where that girl from Iowa State, and I think her name's Audie Cooks, scored 47 against Indiana. It took her 47 points to beat that IU women team. So things are up right now, and you love to see kind of the sports like volleyball getting some love here at this point in the year.
But now we can talk about the main course.
That's the thing, is I've spent the better part of probably 2 full days here researching for our preview for the Big Ten championship game. And I know we'll try and keep it a little brief, because we'll have the separate preview coming out later this week. Is that Indiana and Ohio State is about as evenly matched of a game on paper as you're going to see in the country, maybe all season. Into the playoff, in the regular season, this is an evenly matched football game on paper coming up on Saturday. And you don't play the game on paper, of course, play the game on the field. Indiana, I like their chances. The lines drop from 5.5 to 4.5 on some betting sites. I think most betting sites, the lines drop to 4.5. And everyone I've talked to has said Ohio State's going to blow them out and win by 30. Ohio State might win the game. They might win the game, but I don't think they're going to blow Indiana out of the water.
Anybody who says that's a moron. You said by the numbers, they're the two most evenly matched. If you've watched college football all season, Mike, it's pretty obvious that these two teams are evenly matched.
And I don't know if you've noticed or not, it seemed like all the bravado, all the Signetti kind of talking, I felt like last year that a lot of what he did was to deflect the pressure off of the team and put it squarely on him. He did it in the Notre Dame game. He did it in the Ohio State game. He's been pretty subdued, pretty quiet this week.
You mentioned how he tries to take that pressure off his team. That's a lot of what Bob Knight tried to do back in the day as well.
He's been quiet. He's been very complimentary. Of course, the Ohio State fans is like, because he's scared, he knows what we're going to do to him because we did it to him last year. But I think the thing we can talk about most tonight, and we can get more into the game itself later this week, but the way the rankings came out today, 2 things from the rankings show stood out to me. One, Oregon solidly in that 5th spot, and A&M slid so far down that I don't think that there's any real scenario now that Indiana doesn't get a top 4 seed. Indiana is not going to fall behind Oregon. Head-to-head is supposed to count, so But the other thing is that the committee came out today and said something that they outright denied last year, and it's that this week will have an impact on the overall standings. So you have a team at number 11 in BYU who they'd be number 11 if they weren't playing this weekend. But they could lose to Texas Tech a second time, and all of a sudden Miami could possibly jump in there. Bama has a chance to move up if they can knock off Georgia. Georgia could fall out of that top 4 spot because they play this weekend. And I think it's a huge mistake by the committee to do things like that, because I think you're really, 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 and we've talked about this before, you're really making it hard to justify playing these conference championship games.
And essentially here, 2 things. First being, like, with Notre Dame, we'll have a free shot to that playoff every single year because they don't play a conference championship game. So it's not like they could lose their conference championship game and be out of the playoff altogether. And that's just absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. But it's smart on Notre Dame. It's a loophole, and they take advantage of it. Second thing is, with the Big Ten championship on Saturday, this game is, I think, both teams are going to get a top 4 bye no matter who wins or loses. You're really just playing to see who's going to be the number 1 seed. That's all you're playing for, is to see who's going to be the number 1 seed in the playoff on Sunday.
And if you play well enough, you could be the number 2. The only team that Georgia could move up, obviously, with a win. Texas Tech could move up, obviously, if they dominate again the way they did BYU the first time. But if you play well, you play a close game against number 1, number 2, you could very well be the number 2 team still when they release the brackets on Sunday afternoon.
And we do plan on, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but we do plan on having a reaction to the college football playoff bracket, correct?
Of course.
Greg, you got the Purdue pod later tonight. I need to know Purdue's reaction with the guy who got the targeting call in the bucket game, how that is going to impact the first half of their bowl game.
See, the college basketball rankings came out today or on Monday.
Cranny's still talking about rankings in December.
I know, we didn't even mention Indiana moving up to number 19 in the country in basketball. That's how irrelevant they are.
Yeah.
Once you get into January, I think they start being relevant. I do.
I also saw every actual metric besides the one the pollsters are involved has Michigan ranked number 1.
Michigan and Purdue is going to be a hell of a game.
Because they've had more opportunity. Only play this year at Mackey.
Really? So Purdue will win.
Quick trivia question, guys. Purdue is favored in 30 of their 31 games this year. Any guess the game they're not favored, according to ESPN Analytics?
Michigan.
I don't know. I don't know their home and away, so I don't really have a guess.
At IU.
Really?
That's Purdue 49% chance to win that. A couple close ones were at UCLA, at USC, at Maryland, but mostly Michigan State is only at Purdue. Michigan's only at Purdue this year.
No
Quirk
kidding.
of the schedule. But ESPN Analytics likes IU. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product by TG Media, and I love Susan.